All right, very good. Okay, welcome everyone. This is a meeting of the Town of Waterford Design Review Board, April 25th, 2023. This is a web-based call, so we are operating under the following procedures. The session is being audio and video recorded. We will not use a chat feature in this meeting. To ensure sound quality, the default rule for this meeting is that everyone will remain on mute. Commissioners and staff will generally remain on mute except when speaking or voting. This meeting is open to the public, but is not a public hearing. Therefore, no members of the public may speak unless specifically invited to do so. If a member of the public creates an audio or video disruption, they may be manually ejected from the meeting upon recommendation of the staff or the chair. We appreciate your attendance at this meeting. Should you have any questions about this process, you may call our staff at 860-444-5813 after the meeting has ended. And with that being said, I turn it over to the chair.
Good afternoon, John O'Neill, chair of this board. First item is a call to order, appointment of alternates. We have a full slate here, so we can bypass that and move on to item number 2, plan reviews. PL 23-5, request of Mago Way Realty, owner and applicant for a site plan special permit approval for a new pickleball court and clubhouse at 358 and 360 Mago Point Way, MPD zone, in accordance with sections 14A.39, 14A.315, 22 and 23 of the zoning regulations, and as shown on the plans entitled Site Development Plans, New Pickleball Court and Clubhouse, 358, 360 Mago Point Way, Waterford, Connecticut. Okay. Very good. So what do you got, Bill?
Good evening or good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Bill Sweeney. I'm a land use attorney and a partner at the law firm of Tobin Carberry over in New London, Connecticut. And as always, I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you. Got a PowerPoint sort of slide thing I'd like to use today. Could I have the screen share?
You're well.
Thank you. And Mark, you have a copy of this. I sent this to you via email earlier today.
Yes, I do. I've added it to the record of the Planning and Zoning Commission as well. Okay.
All right. I think I have it now.
Yep.
Can everybody see that okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep, very good. So Mark said.
I represent Mago Way Realty, LLC, which is a Connecticut limited liability company and the owner of the former JMS Auto Repair Facility that was at 358 to 360 Mago Point Way, down at Mago Point here in Waterford. My client has submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission a special permit and a site plan approval application for the adaptive reuse of that property to create a new private pickleball club with seasonal outdoor dining. Some of you may be unfamiliar with what pickleball is. I certainly was when I first started talking with my client, but as I've learned, it's a popular and rapidly growing sport. It's very similar to tennis, ping pong, badminton, and you play with either 2 or 4 players, and you hit a perforated hollow plastic ball, something very similar to a wiffle ball, back and forth over a net using paddles until one side scores. As I said, this is a really popular sport. I've got actually a number of other clients who are looking to put these in, particularly yacht clubs and other recreational venues. It's something that's really growing throughout southeastern Connecticut. Recreational uses like private recreational clubs are allowed in the Mago Point district, as is outdoor dining. We've submitted this application and we're being heard later tonight by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Joining me today on the call, I have Barb DeVersa. Barb is a principal with Mago Way Realty. I also have Seamus Moran, He is our project civil engineer with H&H Engineering Associates. And I also have Sean Rowe on the call. Sean is with Rowe Design. All of them are going to be available if you have any specific questions that I can't answer about our proposal. Some of you may be familiar with Barb and her husband, Paul. They live part-time here in Waterford, and they've redeveloped a number of properties and are currently redeveloping properties in the Mago Point section of Waterford. They've reinvested significant private money and resources into this area of the town, and really to the benefit of the community. Go to the next slide. So my client purchased this property, which is just over an acre in size, last year. And when they bought it, they admittedly didn't have a specific plan in place for what they wanted to do with it. The owners of JMS Auto were looking to sell. And quite frankly, if you remember what the property looked like then, it was not one with a significantly attractive appearance, and that long-time repair use situated right at the entrance to Mago Point was really not an attractive gateway to the Mago Point neighborhood. So Barb and her husband, Paul, decided to buy the property to make sure it was redeveloped in an appropriate manner. It could be reused in a way that was more compatible with what was going on at Mago Point, and a lot of the reinvestment that the Diverses and other parties have made in Mago Point over the last few years. So last summer, as their plans began to take shape, they decided to first get approval from the zoning officer for the construction of a pickleball court on the property. You can see that on the right side of the screen here. And also submitted plans for the development of a variety of pollinator gardens on the property as well. And this being sort of the beginning of their vision to bring this property into some kind of productive reuse. This is the pickleball court that they constructed, and that's actually complete at this point, and it has a planter bed around it right now. And it's really a beautiful court, and it's been in place now for the better part of the last 9 months or so. You know, their hope is to continue this renovation of the property and bring the property into back into not only productive reuse, but something that's really attractive at the gateway of Mago Point. The greatest challenge, though, to this vision, and these pictures I took yesterday, so to give you sort of a current view of the site. The greatest challenge they have, though, to redoing this site is the fact that the property itself is located within the federal floodplain, coastal floodplain, and it has a base flood elevation, or a BFE, 8 feet above grade. And so that means in the 100-year storm, floodwaters can be as deep as 8 feet over this entire site. And that really creates significant obstacles for any new construction on the site. And it even has significant restrictions on reusing the building that's there in its current condition. It was quickly determined, as they were sort of going through their visioning for the site and their planning process, that building a new building here was just not feasible from a cost perspective. But even a renovation of this repair facility, and this is all concrete block construction, was also similarly challenged because of something called the floodplain substantial improvement threshold. The building itself is valued at only $100,000, and under FEMA's guidelines, any renovations to the structure itself cannot exceed more than 50% of that value without elevating or floodproofing the building, neither of which are economically viable. So as you can imagine, trying to do something productive with this building, but only having a budget of $50,000, $50,000 does not go a long way these days. It's a real challenge, and unless you can be really creative. And so Barb and Paul tried to work with a design team to be really creative to see what they could do with this building. Go to site plan now. Luckily, the Diverses weren't scared away from that challenge. And so what they try to do is put together an innovative plan to convert the repair building to a clubhouse for a private pickleball club, and then replace all of those cracked parking lots with lawns, gardens, pavers, and an opportunity for a seasonal food truck as well. A way to sort of turn this property into an underutilized parcel to something that was really vibrant and would be attractive to the community and would draw people down to Mago Point. Exterior to the building itself, we are proposing, and I'll show some architectural elevation in a second. We are proposing on the front of the building and on the side a detached pergola structure. And the purpose of this is a structure that's not connected to the actual building. It's going to be freestanding, even though it goes right up to the building. And because it's not physically attached to the building, it doesn't count toward our substantial improvement threshold. And so we're allowed to do a pergola and not have it count toward that $50,000 budget. We're hoping that pergola will soften the appearance of the building and provide some interest and some shadows on the front and the side of the building that will really try to make it look a little bit more presentable. In addition, as well, we are going to be installing, and I have a picture I'll show you in a second, new glass paneled overhead doors on the 3 repair bays to allow natural light into the building, but also create something really interesting on the front. Some of you may have visited, it used to be called M Bar in Stonington, but they had taken a gas station and turned it into a bar and cafe. I was involved with that project a number of years ago. It's changed owners and names since then, but it's the same idea of using sort of garage bays and putting in new windowed overhead doors to really improve the appearance of the building. In addition, the entire building is going to get a fresh coat of paint as well, and really be spruced up to try to make it look more presentable. In addition, and pointing out on the site plan, we're going to be installing a new semicircular access drive to the property. This is all going to be permeable pavers, so water will be able to flow down through these pavers. And we're going to be establishing 4 parking spaces along that permeable pathway for vehicles, including one for that would accommodate a handicap van. Those permeable pavers extend from this access way through a walkway to the building. They will extend under the entire pergola as well, and they also extend to the right and to a future food truck pad that we're proposing on the property as well. The Verses are still working out the program for that food truck, but they're either going to operate that food truck themselves or work with 1 or more third parties to provide outdoor dining experience on a seasonal basis on the property. We do have a small outdoor seating area for 8 seats for patrons of the food truck, and that the food truck will be open and available for the general public seasonally as well. What's interesting, I think, is here's the pickleball court here, but much of the site is sort of undesignated on this plan. We are putting in new sidewalks along the frontage of the property, and we are providing some new on-street parking spaces, but much of the property is left undeveloped, and that's really going to accommodate a really robust landscaping plan, which I'll share with you in a couple minutes. I would just also point out, this is a seasonal facility. It's going to be open from April to November, and in the winter months, this will be closed down, and all operations will close down during that time. I know that you guys don't typically get into the details on the inside of the building, but I'm going to show them to you. But here's an outside rendering that we had done to show the appearance of the building from Mago Point Way. Again, we're sort of stuck with the concrete block and the stucco sort of exterior of this building. We are going to repaint it and keep it nice and bright and white, but we're installing this new freestanding wood pergola in front of it, and those old sort of traditional garage doors are being replaced with glass frame garage doors for those 3. Again, let natural light into the inside of the building, and obviously dress up the appearance of the building itself. our hope is that this, with the extensive landscaping that'll go through, will really improve the overall aesthetics of the property and work within our budget, which is really the limiting factor because of the floodplain rules. I don't typically go into interior stuff with you guys, but I want to just briefly talk about it because I want to show you where our money is going and why we can't do a lot of other things on the outside. Inside the clubhouse, we're going to have a lobby, a small lounge area, a mechanical room, and 2 bathrooms, one interior and one exterior opening inside the building. The majority of our budget, our $50,000 renovation budget, is going to code upgrades for ADA accessibility and to upgrade broken and sort of outdated building systems. The building is served by public water and public sewer. But the lounge area here, we are intending to have sort of comfortable sitting space for club members either before or after their play. And we are proposing a coffee bar in this area as well. One of the big challenges we have, as I said, is this budget. And so one of the things we can't do is put in a lot of the interior sort of amenities that we would normally like to, but we've come up with a really innovative way, and I share it with you just because I think some of you might be interested in it. We are going to be using removable walls, basically hanging walls within the building. The inside of the interior walls are all concrete block construction, not very attractive. They're fine for an auto repair garage. They're not really great for much else. But we worked closely with John Mullen and his staff, particularly Steve Cardell, to come up with a way to basically redo the walls, but not have it count toward our substantial improvement threshold. And what we've designed, really a creative approach, is using basically reclaimed wood in panels that will hang on the walls in French cleats, similar to how you might hang a painting or a picture in your house. And because the walls aren't actually physically adhered to the concrete, they can be lifted up and moved. They're treated like an art piece rather than a wall, and therefore it doesn't have to be counted towards substantial improvement. So we'll be able to have a very warm and homey interior of our lounge space and in the inside of our clubhouse, and still be consistent and compliant with FEMA floodplain requirements. And it's this kind of creativity that we've tried to use throughout the project to do something of quality with this really, really restrictive budget. In terms of lighting, so right now, if you've been out there, you know that the lighting on the site basically consists of floodlights on the building and very large poles with gigantic sort of spot floodlights that flood the old parking lots with bright light. It's basically like a car impound lot right now. And so we're ripping all that out. So all those light fixtures are coming out in this plan. And what we're instead going to replace that with is a variety of full cutoff and low voltage alternatives. Again, this operation is dusk till dawn. We don't expect nighttime activity, but we still need to have some lighting for security and safety purposes. So what we're doing is we're using these in the lower left-hand corner, these full cutoff, what we call sconces and these are marked in the yellow dots on the plan. These will be on the pergola and on the building itself, and they'll shine light directly down just to light the perimeter of the building. We're also using these LED footlights around the access driveway and the walkways to provide footlight for people who maybe, for whatever reason, be on the property so nobody trips or falls. We also are using directional lighting, and these are the orange dots on the plan. These are going to be used specifically to light up particular specimen trees and particular landscaping features. So again, these are all low voltage, they're LED, trying to really downscale the lighting on this, and it'll be really limited to very, very sort of decorative lighting rather than lighting the place up like a car mall parking lot. And we think that this is an effective way of doing that and highlighting the landscaping. So here's our landscape plan, and this is sort of an interesting one. You don't normally have a client who's really is skilled and into landscaping as Barb is. And so Barb took it upon herself to develop the landscaping plan for the project. And you can see that literally half the site, more than half the site, is landscaped. And really a major part of this project. Barb's an expert gardener, and she's been a major advocate in the community for pollinator gardens and pollinator pathways. And she's already established some of these on some of her other properties at Mago Point. So she's designed this fully designed plan, calling out different species and plantings. It's a mix of lawn space. It has pollinator gardens. She has a number of ornamental trees on the property proposed as well, and carefully selected shrubs. She calls them out on the plan here, and we can go in any level of detail you want. But she, trying to borrow and grab some of the same species that are across the street on some of her and Paul's other properties. The idea being the entire section of the property, which is known as 358 Mago Point Way, is going to be a garden. It's going to be a landscape planted garden. And that's the first thing that people see when they come into Mago Point, is that area. And if you remember that first photo I showed, you sort of have that barren expanse up to the building. We're going to have a beautiful landscaped area with a stone walking path, with the trees, the plantings, the flowers. It's something that she really prides herself on. And I think it's going to be a beautiful addition to this property, but it's really going to change the game when you're coming into Mago Point and you see this gorgeous, garden, which it basically takes up an entire lot as you enter the property. And I think it's going to be, I hope that you agree with us, it's going to be a beautiful sort of approach to Mago Point as you come in. I think, that's sort of the extent of our presentation. Just here's an aerial shot I'm going to end with, just to show you the two parcels that we're dealing with and how they sort of conform and how they complement the other parcels, and why it's so important that we do something here. That dirt turnaround area here is that we're going to be where those pollinator gardens and those landscape gardens are going to be. And it's just going to be a really amazing sort of entry point. I think the bottom line is, our efforts here is to adaptively reuse a property that was not an attractive gateway, and to bring it to a completely different level with a completely different use, something that's going to attract visitors. It enhances the vitality of the district. And I think it takes this site and elevates it to a whole nother level. And I think it's notable that we've tried to do this while we've had this amazing restriction on us, this obstacle of the floodplain and the inability to really put any significant money into the existing building. I think we've tried to instead put the money and the time and the effort into the exterior treatments so that we can get some use back out of the property. Myself, Barb, Seamus, Sean, we're all available if you have any specific questions. I can go back through any of the slides and we can get into detail on anything that you want to, but I do appreciate you taking the time for us this afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. It's really quite a project, and as you say, with significant restrictions. I've had to deal with those FEMA limits on other projects. It's a challenge, but what you've come up with is a fantastic answer. That's great.
Well, I think you're going to see a mix of new and reused in Mago Point. I mean, certainly the Diverses have built structures like the one across the street, conforming to all the new construction guidelines. But I think some of you have probably been down to Tony D's new restaurant as well, and Fat Tuna, and he's done a great job on reusing a building that was really tired and sort of it seemed like its best days were behind it. He was forced, for the same reasons we are, to sort of work within the confines of the building. So I think you're going to see that as the rest of Mago Point gets redeveloped. You're going to see a mix of new and sort of reuse, and the reuse has to be creative. It's the only way it works.
Very good. Questions? Impressive.
I got a couple of simple ones. How are you handling trash?
Great question. Let me go back a couple here. So we have a trash, this is our site plan. We have a trash enclosure on the back of the building where we have roll-away waste receptacles. For the real issue is the food truck operation. So we're also going to have Paul and Barb have a bunch of old whiskey barrels that they got from a distillery. And so we're going to be using those as sort of attractive waste receptacles out in front when the food truck is operating. And those will be emptied daily and then back into these waste receptacles for private pickup.
How about external utilities? Are there any gas tanks or compressors, stuff like that?
No, we don't have any outdoor tanks or anything like that. One of the challenges that we had is the new energy codes that have been adopted for heating and cooling would make this project not viable. We're basically dealing with concrete block construction. So we worked really closely with Steve Cardell. We determined that if we designate the property as a seasonal property, that we literally close in November and open up in May, we don't need to have the same HVAC systems that a new building would need under the current energy codes. And so again, this building, we don't have any intended areas right now for any outdoor tanks or other features. We think we can work within the existing confines of the facility as it stands today.
So I've got another question that probably is more for the board than the design review board, but you've got pickleball going on and you're talking about a commercial food truck. Is there any on-site parking besides the 4 spots?
No, under the Mago Point regulations, this combination of uses require 6 parking spaces by zoning. We have 4 spaces on site. The Mago Point regulations allow you to provide your required parking off-site on an adjacent property within the district within 1,200 feet. So we've provided evidence that we have extra space at both the cafe spot across the street and the office across the street, where we've designated those 2 additional spots to meet the zoning. From a practical standpoint, I want to point out as well that we have 5 additional extra spots in the office space, which we're designating as overflow. And we're creating a total of 5 new on-street spaces, which we can't count by zoning, but will be created and will be open for use by cars on the street as well. So you add those all together, the 6 dedicated, the 5 overflow, that gets you to 11 with 5 more on street. Now we're up to 16 parking spaces, which is 12 more than the zoning requires. We also had the DEP's the DEP lot across the street, basically across from the outboard marine place. That can't be designated as parking because it's state property, but in all intents and purposes, it serves as overflow parking for all of the uses at Mago Point today. There's also parking under the bridge, and I know that the town's been working on developing additional parking under the bridge. So at this point, I think we certainly have all the parking we need from zoning, but from an operational standpoint, we're pretty comfortable that there is on-street, off-street, and available public parking that would accommodate whatever demand we have for this. The club itself is going to start off very small. So, in the early days of the club, as I understand it, the plan is to have no more than a couple dozen members and to see how it goes. And then if it can still accommodate more, they'll add more, but they're being very, very judicious in sort of the size of the club and the number of players that are going to be allowed to join in the early days of it.
Well, I'm for one, would rather have you do the landscape than make parking out of that.
Yeah,
I've
us too. And I think if you read the Mago Point regulations, there's a real push not to over park your properties. There's literally, 2 pages in the regulation itself about creative ways to sort of share parking, limit parking, establish parking arrangements with others. What's good here is that, my clients own a lot of the other properties at the point right now. So we can sort of look globally at parking solutions and literally just walk across the street to your car.
I got a question for I'll wait till the meeting, so it's more. How you calculate parking with a food truck.
There's parking because the food trucks are mobile. And they come in on a sporadic basis. There is no specific parking for each food truck. However, if a food truck does become a permanent fixture, in that matter, then it's 3 parking spaces per lot.
Not counting the truck.
Right.
Just 3?
Just 3.
Yeah, seems low.
Yeah, right. The idea is, as Attorney Sweeney mentioned, is that there's shared parking. You can do shared parking, but also the idea is to develop more public parking spots there as well, with the development of the overflow parking lot for the boat launch, parking under the bridge now that the town is signed with lease. So the idea is to have a more cohesive and shared environment.
That's what I make a point. So the 3 is if no matter where the truck is, it's 3.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I would say that we were extremely conservative in our calculations too, because we didn't treat the food truck as a removable food truck. We treated it like a permanent building and calculated based on that to get to the 6. So just so you realize how we calculated it, we didn't want to try to cut any corners on that issue. So we actually, I think, took the more conservative interpretation in terms of our parking calcs for zoning purposes.
Joy, any questions?
I think you're muted, Joy.
I would say it's commendable. Thank you. And I think that hopefully it'll encourage other development in Mago Point because it'll bring a gateway statement. So thank you.
Very good. All right. Any other questions or concerns, Bob?
No.
All right. So, let's see, is there a,
Make a motion.
motion to,
I'll make a motion to approve.
very good.
Second,
Thank you, Joy. Okay. Can we have a, all in favor? To approve the plan?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. All right. Yeah, terrific job. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
can't
It's
wait
always-
to see it.
It's always nice to come before you guys. So please have a great rest of your evening.
Yes, thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
I'm very,
Thank you,
very
Bob.
excited to create, so thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Good night.
All right.
Mark, I'll see you later.
Yes. Okay, Bill. We'll see you then.
All right, bye.
All right, we still have Joy. Next item, approval of the meeting, approval of the minutes from March 28th.
Make a motion to approve.
Very good.
Second.
Second, thank you, Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
I'm gonna abstain.
very good. Okay, Ed will abstain. And finally, is there a motion for adjournment?
No, could you hold for a
Yeah,
second?
sure.
Um, the January meeting minutes,
Yes, I got the
Yeah.
that's fine.
my knowledge, to my knowledge, they've never been approved.
Yes, they weren't, because I remember I accidentally exited out of the meeting.
It should have been on the agenda.
Yep.
Oh,
January meeting.
yes,
That was
Okay.
the,
Wow.
We never-
the gas station.
I remember that now.
Yeah.
the best way.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, the best one.
Would you like to revisit that then, or you want
That's the best way. I want to.
Well, they need to be
One there.
approved,
One
so
there.
is it a problem with anybody that the fact that it's not on the agenda or? John? John, do you see any?
Well, I mean,
issue
it probably should be on the agenda for us to do it, and then, I mean, we.
Well,
should-
yeah, it does need to at least be on the agenda. I don't know if you want to add it to the agenda now and act on them, or wait until you actually get copies in your hand and act on it at the next meeting.
Well, I think since we're not in a position where we're appropriating money, then I'd like to make a motion to add approval of the January minutes to the agenda. That's a motion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ed.
So are we approving it now and just adding it to the? this
Well,
agenda?
right now, we're just adding it to this agenda.
Yeah,
All right,
then you need to make another motion to act on.
Right.
okay.
Okay, so all in favor
Aye.
of adding the approval of the minutes to this agenda
Aye.
Aye,
from January?
get ready, Jody raised their hand.
All right, all in favor then, very good. Okay, so now next,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the January. What was the date? It's here somewhere. January 10th. Minutes.
Yes.
yeah, is there a second?
Second,
Thank you, Ed. All in favor of approving the minutes of January 10?
Aye.
aye,
Aye. Thank you, Joy. All in favor. Very good.
Good.
Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
All right, is there any other new business?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Bob.
second.
Thank you, Ed. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Joy.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, that's good.
Got it.